As you know, my name is Juarez. I work as agronomist from World Central Kitchen for Food Producer Network program since past November. But for the last 10 plus years, I've been working with the farming and food sector, especially with agroecological farming and sustainable agriculture. And lately, in the past 2 3 years, getting engaged in and learning from the sustainable fisheries too. Um, Today we will be talking about the preventive measures for extreme atmospheric events. So, and thanks Pam for point to this. So we will talking what we can do before or in advantage to face those kind of extreme conditions, weather conditions, right? So we will not be we will not be touching in detail what we do, have to do after those events. But yesterday, when I was making the final touch to this webinar, it was came to my mind that probably next year it will be useful to make a series to what to do before, during, and after a hurricane with our operation, even if it's a fishery or food production, or maybe or farming or food elaboration or anything. So we will be touching those topics more in detail within our next capacity building calendars, probably at the beginning of the next year. So okay, let's start. What is an atmospheric event? Most of these events or these phenomena are due to the changes in temperature, pressure, or in density of the atmosphere. And I bold the atmosphere because we will be defining what is the atmosphere just in a few moments. So when we're talking about those events and the change of temperature, pressure, and density, especially density in the air, it's what caused those events. That's the reason why when a hurricane or a tropical storm is in development, have been measured the pressure in the center of the system, because those systems needs a lowering pressure to form their center or their eye, and to keep to take the form and pass from a tropical depression to a tropical storm, then the hurricane, and so then. So that's the reason why those combination of factors is what determine in the case of hurricane, but as well from the event of heavy snow or heavy rains, or most of the climate events that we face. But also no plus those events that are meteorological events, we have other atmospheric events as the one as optical atmospheric events or hydric atmospheric events. So let's see some example of them. So this is one of the optical atmospheric event of phenomena. Those are the northern lights, and they are really standing, right, and really pretty. So this is one atmospheric event that happens and don't needs to be related with the meteorologic factors, right? It is happened because of some emissions of the suns, where the suns sometimes emit other kind of radiation, and because of the atmosphere have some layers that protect us for the direct impact of this, is the reason why it seems this. But other optical atmospheric event that we are commonly we see are the rainbows. So the rainbows are really pretty too, and they are so common. So this is another atmospheric optical event. When we are talking about the hydric atmospheric events, those are all related. Hydric water, it's cool. Those are other examples are snow or rain events. Also, so as I show here, the hail storms. So no matter if we are on the Caribbean, so we sometimes we could face this kind of event, the hails, when the water suddenly pass from a liquid state to a solid state, and it's fall in this way, right? So this is an hydric atmospheric event, as well as the dry seasons. It is another atmospheric event, right? But the ones that really has been impacting in a really hard way our neighborhood, as I call the Caribbean area lately, has been the storms, right? So when we are talking about these events, they are atmospheric meteorological events, right? So and this picture I decided to put here because it was a really impressive picture. That picture, it was uh, took in 2017, and those hurricanes they were three hurricanes at the same time in our region. We are in the path of them, right? So those hurricanes are your far left. It is the hurricane named Katia. Then it was the hurricane Irma, and after Maria, it was the hurricane Jose, if I remember well, or Jesus. I don't remember which was of their name, but this was one of the most active hurricane season or storm season in the Caribbean, and probably the one that caused most loss during in our region, right? So for example, Hurricane Irma hit it so heavily USBI. 2 weeks then, in Puerto Rico, we have the hit of Hurricane Maria. And in this season, if I remember well, okay, on Category 5 hurricanes, they between Irma and Maria, they hit 6 different locations from the Caribbean through the southern part of the states. So those events will be more commonly. I hope not any single place in the Caribbean or in the other parts face them, but we are not exempt because of the climate change. So we are more prone to experience those kind of events. That's the reason why today I will be sharing some tips and practice to make more resilient your operations. So hurricanes happens because of we were talking a few slides ago when I was starting about what caused the atmospheric events, and it say that it was a change in temperature and pressure because of the increase of the ocean temperature. So they need, or the atmosphere need a kind of relief valve, right? So when those events happens, are those relief valves to lower the temperatures of the oceans, right? That's happened because of the rise of temperature of the oceans. It's why it makes more commonly to happens, right? So the panorama, talking about the climate change, I don't want to be scary any of you, but the reality it is not so bright future talking in those terms. So what we need to do, the climate change is real. We're experienced, not now, but at least for the past 10, 15 years. So I think in my very own opinion that we need to find the right way to deal with it, just to accommodate our life to that reality. And that's the reason why today we are being talking a little bit from some practices that you can make on your farm, and some tips and some experience, right? So okay, so right here is what is the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is that space between the Earth's surface and the limits of the space, of the outer space, right? But what determine most of our climates, of our those kind of events, and have a direct impact in our daily life, tends to happen in the troposphere. The troposphere, it is where all or most of what we call air, it's in the atmosphere, and this air is conformed of oxygen, nitrogen, and other gases. But I just want to point, because we will be talking in a few moments about farming. So most of those air in the atmosphere, the 70 something plus of the percent of the atmosphere, of the air in the atmosphere is conformed by nitrogen. And nitrogen is one of the very limited nutrients that we need for food production, right? And the most commonly way to provide this to the plants are using fertilizer, right? Mineral fertilizers. But if we have 70% of our air, it's nitrogen, we can use it for farming, right? And there is some a family of plants that they make an association with a soil-borne bacteria named rhizobacteria, that they are able to fix this nitrogen from the air to the soil and make it able to the plants. So if for our participants, now we have a platform. Pam can give some more details about the platform, but if you go there and you rewatch the webinar that we done about the sustainable soil management, you will find more information about how to use those plants to improve and to fertilize your soil. And it's really, really easy and really, really sustainable to make it in that way. So, but if you need any more information or you're interested, just please write us a message, an email, and we will be sharing some more information about it, right? Okay, so let's start talking about the strategies to prevent, for prevention, right? I just want to stop here and point to today. Okay, Pam, my bad. We have the chat disabled. Can you, if you can attend this, that will be good.
Sorry.
Thanks to the person that just let us know.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
I understood.
So most of the things that I will be talking now are things that are more, we can call it common sense, right? But or simple practices or basic practices, and sometimes because of our daily routine and something like this, are basic things that we forget to do it or to implement in our to in our daily routine, right? Or in our, when we are designing our projects. So what I recommend is a project design that will be fit or you make your design of the project thinking of that reality, of the reality that we are in the zone, that we could be heated at for 6 months of the year. We could be heated for those from one of those events, right? So when you are making the design of your projects, or when you are redesigning, do it in the context that we are prone to face those kind of events, as well thinking of a changing environment with a changing climate, right? Talking about in terms of drought seasons too, and other extreme events as those ones, right? So it is really important to have a production plan, and we will talk more in details in within a few slides about our production plan. But our production plan, despite if we are if we produce livestock, or we produce any X or Y crop, it is really important to make that plan in the context of those events too. So the other one is the emergency or the contingency plan. And for those of you that has been applying to our program, so most of you could remember that we ask for if you have this kind of plan in your operation. If you don't have one, no matter how simple you think you can make it, just do one of those plans, because during during those situations of the 36 or 72 hours before those events, that will help you in this stress time to focus of what you need to do to keep safe your operation, right? And then have a recovery plan. You know, if this event hit us or we pass through this experience, hopefully not, what I need to have, what I need to do to get back on track soon as possible, right? So we will not be talking so much about the recovery plan, but we will be talking about what you can do as preventive measures, right? So let's go to the next one. So let's get started.
Sorry to interrupt. We have a question that is actually based on the content of the presentation. Is it based on outdoor soil-based farming only? I think you're going to be covering a couple subjects, right?
I would be covering a couple of subjects. Yeah, not just outdoor for me. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, okay. So, but now we will be talking specifically about outdoor farming, specific with the soil. Why? Because no matter most of the losses that could be experienced during those events are directly linked to the soil. And that's the reason why we will be talking about of this. So, I have a little mistake on the presentation. So I put two times contour farming and ditches. Anyway, so when we are talking about the soil conservation practices, one of the most important conservation practices or one of the more powerful practices are when we are farming in X or Y slope to make what we call contour farming. And contour farming is not other thing that what you can see at your left in the screen, on your screen at the left. So it's to put your crops in a horizontal position from the slope. And no matter if you have a slope from 20% or you just have a 4 or 5% in your slope, it is really important to put your crop rows in contour to the slope. That will minimize heavily the soil loss during those events. As well, if you are in a flats like the people or our friend in the Bahamas, it is really important because sometimes you could barely see these slopes, but there are some slope in your farm, and that will help you to discharge all the water that you will be receiving through this event. As well, use a system of ditches as the one we have at the right. No matter if you are in a huge incline or you are kind of flat, you can make this a ditch system to discharge water in excess, right? It is really, really useful, and I highly advise to make those systems in your operation. I want to add that I will be sharing as complement material of this training a small presentation on how you can design and build this kind of system really easy with not so much effort or input of money in your operation, right? As well, how you can make handmade tools to help you to determine the contour, as well to give some inclination to your ditches if you incline in your farm is barely near to zero, but you think will be useful to have the ditch system. How you can make those ditches to have an incline inside them to discharge water faster than if you don't have it, right? Yeah, and so you can see here at the right, this draw, it's what a contour farming looks like in combination with a ditch system. And in your left, my bad, and in the right, you can see the ditch system working. If you look to the central ditch, you will see it have a barrier in some part, and sometimes those barriers are used to break the water speed because erosion could happen inside of the ditches, and you don't want to the erosion to destroy all the work that you have done. But other times, those barriers are used to help to retain some water and make this water infiltrate to the soil to recharge the groundwater. And it is a nice practice to have this within your dishes system. Other practice that will help you to minimize the soil loss during those events or the rain, the rain effects on the soil, it is to have your soil covered. The first barrier to face the soil loss is to don't have a bare soil. So that is really important to maintain some cover in your soil. At your left, you can see this is it is a coffee plantation. I think this is in the Central America, if I remember well. I think this is in Nicaragua or in Costa Rica. And you can see two of those soil conservation practice in place. So you can see the contour farming as well, the soil cover or permanent cover in the soil. So the right term or the most commonly term for those plants you use for this are cover crops. And cover crops could be seasonal cover crops or permanents. In this case, I highly recommend to use permanent cover crops in the areas you have perennials crops or in the areas you are not producing vegetable or short cycle crops. So at your right, you can see this is this picture is from one of our new grantees in Puerto Rico, and what he has been doing lately is to avoid to use herbicide and bare the soil. And he has been working the weed control mechanically using a trimmer with his employees. Those are avocados and some lime trees, and he has been cutting the grass, but not till the leaf the soil bare, and that will help him to control the erosion of the soil. So if you think it is kind of hard or will take time, or you don't have the time to implement a specific cover crop as permanent cover for the soil, you just can leave the spontaneous vegetation and just control with mechanic. All the time, I recommend to avoid as possible or for completely the use of the herbicides, because herbicides have a really detrimental effects, not just on the soil, but in the environment, in our health too, right? So I want to show this example. This example, it is a permanent soil cover. I don't know if some of you has been or know this kind of plant. This kind of plant is the creeping forest peanut, or the scientific name is Arachis glabrata. And this plant, it is really nice. And once it's in place, she will be covering the soil all the time, and here is integrated in a taro root production, or as we name in Puerto Rico or in Spanish, yautía. So it's a really nice plant to have it. Does not demand heavy water, deal really good with the drought seasons. And for me, it is really, or I highly recommend to use this in the Caribbean. So there is another species named yellow peanut plant. You can use it too, but mostly farmers use this species because it's kind of bushy, grow and cover better the soil. It's more aggressive in terms of covers as well. It does not turn in a headache because it's not so invasive, right? As well, this plant, as there are better plants that make it, but this plant have the potential to make this symbiotic relation with the soil-borne bacteria, that it's able to fix nitrogen. So that is another reason to use this kind of plant too, right? Other practices are erosion control barrier. No matter if you are on a slope or you're on flat, I highly recommend to use those kind of barrier because soil erosion could happen not just because of you have a slope and in combination with rain. It also happen in a combination with high winds and rain. And if you could see some video, and I advise all of you to go on the web and look for videos where are maximizing or zoom it the impact of the rain drop in the soil and how harm it is. So I highly recommend to use soil erosion barrier too. So you can use this kind of plant too, and those are live erosion control barriers. So if you see the strips within the field in the right in the picture at your left, this is uh, this kind of weed that has been using for this. It is the vetiver. So the vetiver have a strong potential for maintain the soil in place, also to help the water to infiltrate the soil faster because of this. Because if you look at the right picture, you see how big the root system of this plant grow, and it is really useful. And this plant, I say that this plant it is kind of a miracle plant, and it is really useful for soil erosion control as well for many other things. This plant you can place it within the uh, shallow water currents and uses as a biological filter too. So for those of you that never seen, we will be sharing some information on this plant, but has been used widely around the globe to improve and to maintain the good health of soil. Other kind of erosion control barriers are the removable ones, barriers are just use the use of rocks, just to place some rocks along your slope or even inside of the ditches, as you see in the picture at the right, just to interrupt the path of water, the speed of water. In the picture of the right, this is not a ditch. This is more a kind of what we call swales. Swales are bigger ditches that are used to catch all the water, the runoff water inside of the farms and discharge that water. And I really highly recommend for this for flat farms to have this kind of system as well, in combinations with some grading of your soil to help to have a little bit more of inclination and move the water to those swales to discharge of that water. But if the soil, the run of the soil, it's the length of the soil, it's big, I highly recommend to use those kind of barriers inside of the soil just to interrupt the speed of the water. Because if the water have a free pass along the swales, the soil will be starting to get some erosion, and that's turned in a really bad situation too. So let's move now to talk about a little bit of what practices we can do in terms of crops, of crop production, right? First, it is the harvest season or the harvest calendar. And as I mentioned, if some of you attend to the webinar we done on harvest planning at the beginning of the years, I was talking there about how important it is to have a calendar for the crops for the year long. If you are producing short cycle crops, as most of the vegetables are, right? So it is really important to plan this during the year, specific because during those month of more active months, between August to at the ends of August to the beginning of the October, it is when the hurricane season are more active. So try to have don't have many crops that are not resistant or to extreme weather condition by that time, because we don't want to lose that harvest. That is what I recommend, what I call resistant crops. And let's see some example of them. Okay, so I was talking right about the harvest calendar, and I say it's a key to maintaining constant supply of produce. So if we face those those kind of events, we want to keep having some crops, not just to keep having economical activity from our business, but also they could be a food a secure food supply, right? So that's the reason why I recommend for by that time to have some tubers. Tubers are, you know, are underground. They could be resist the impact of heavy winds, as the example we have here, as the cassava or sweet potato that it is really popular in the Bahamas. I went around a month ago or 5 weeks ago to visit our grantees in Grand Bahama and Abaco. On for my surprise, I find in a pretty number of farms this kind of crop, the sweet potato. It is one of my favorite root vegetables. So I highly recommend to have them, and as soon as the event happens, to if we experience a heavy flood in our farm, it is as soon as possible. You can go there and harvest as much as you can. Also, most of those the tubers and the root vegetables, they don't need of cold storage to extend their shelf life, right? So that is really it is really I highly recommend to have them ready to harvest during those peak months of the hurricane season. Move from the from vegetable production to this kind of crop as well. They are our typical food in the Caribbean, right? Other thing is to have seedlings ready once the event pass and we are safe and we clean all that what can be damaged in our farm. So we are ready to replace those damaged crops. That's the reason why I say the first step to recover your production after the hit of hurricane is start to make it seedlings. And to make seedlings, you need to ensure that you have able seed supplies. I know sometimes our operations are really time demand highly amount of times, and we don't have enough room to produce our seeds. But there are some places that you can find good seeds, and I highly recommend for you in the beginning of the harvest of the hurricane season to buy some seeds to have a secure supply, your seed stash that will be recommended. And I will ask Pamela to share one of our grantees in Puerto Rico project that he has been producing a really good quality seeds for any of you that are interested to look through his webpage. You can look it and find if it's suitable for your operation, right? So, and I make this history to some other people. One of my friends who is a farmer, he passed when Hurricane Maria was striking Puerto Rico. One of the things that he has been doing during those hours inside of his house was prepare some seedlings just to get on track as soon as possible after the hurricane. And between 5 and 6 weeks after Maria, he was harvesting some vegetables, some greens for consumption and for selling too. So I recommend all the time to have some seeds stash, and as soon as possible after the event happens, start to make some seedling. Then you can clean all the harvest fields to replace all the damaged crops, right? Thanks, Pamela, for sharing the Stemi Huerto link. Okay. Other thing is, so we need to maintain our perennial crops. Mostly of our perennial crops are fruit trees, And it's really, really, really important to keep them, to prune them yearly. So tree pruning, it is a standard practice, or must be a standard practice in your fruit trees if you are a fruit farmer, right? Why? Have many advantage, but talking about those events, when you have trees that are pruned, that they are in a right size, they are less prone to fall or to break it. If you see at your left picture, there is a lime tree being pruned, right? And I don't know how many of you have the opportunity to go to a commercial fruit farm, but most of them looks like the picture at your right. Those are mango trees. So what you need to do if you are a fruit farmer, once you plant the tree, for the years that he has been growing, you make what we call a maintenance pruning. So each year you a shaping pruning. So all the years you has been pruning the tree in the way you want to shape that tree. Once it reached the size that you think it is suitable, for example, for when we are talking about the citrus production, most of the citrus trees, the recommended size or height is no more than 5 to 6 or 7 feet, foots, right? So once it's reached that that high, once a year after the harvest, you will be making the maintaining pruning to keep the tree in that size, in that shape. If you see the mango trees at your right, those mango trees are not taller than 8 or 10 or 10 feet, right? And they has been maintained in this way because they are more easier to manage them, to harvest them. But most of the trees that are in this size are way more adapted to face heavy winds events. Okay, so I highly recommend, if you have mature trees now and they are about 15, 20, 25 feet tall, you can prune them and short their size. You know, you not go and cut all the tree with the branches, because you will kill it, but you can be reducing this size periodically, right? As again, the right time to make all those prunes are when the harvest season ends. Okay, not before, when they are flowering, because they are putting much energy on flowering to produce fruits. So we don't want to stress the trees. So just make it after the harvest, right? So there are many other recommendations when we are talking about in the crop terms. Other thing are the phytosanitary measurements. So after it is really common after the heat of those events to have some peaks of disease or pest in the crops. So what I recommend it is just to keep an eye or keep monitoring all the time your crops for at least 1.5 months more intense after if the event happens, right? If you see anything wrong with your crops, it is better to eliminate those crops that has been affected. If you see that there are some fungus or lesions, or they are decaying so bad, it's better. It is probably because they have any disease, especially after those events, the population of the fungi increase, right? As well of the insects. So just keep an eye to keep those disease or pest control, right? So as well, I stop here and I recommend to our participants, you can go to our platform, the new platform, and watch one of our webinar that we done about pest management and integrated pest management. So there's a really value information that you can find in that terms. So now let's move to talk about livestock. So we know that to secure livestock, previous those events sometimes are really hard, right? So that's the reason why we need to take preventive measures. So one of the most important thing with when we are producing or working with livestock, it's from the beginning, make safe structure for them. And mostly of the structure that we have for our animals, they could be the walls are on blocks or concrete or other really resistant material, but mainly or most of the roof of those structure tends to be on steel roof, right? And we, all of us here, know what's happened with those roofs during the heavy wind event, right? So that's a reason why we need to secure those those roofs. And one recommended practice, it is to use steel wires with those tensors to secure and tight those roof, to avoid the wind to take away the roof, and even those steel plates sometimes turn in a projectile and could harm our livestock as well other structure or even person, right? So that is really important to wire our roofs in our structures. One thing it is, because we are in the tropic in Puerto Rico, it is a really normal practice to make this, especially after the hit of Hurricane Maria. But when we are working with steel materials in the within the Caribbean, our humidity in the environment is really high, and those materials are most of them are built to perform in temperate climate where the humidity is not so high. So what I advise to the people, it is, if you are able, it is easy for you to remove them during the other 6 months that we are not in the hurricane season. Make it, and that will extend the life of this, because the corrosion could happen on that materials. And if they start to have corrosion, they are weaker and they can collapse and during those events, right? So it's highly recommended to remove them, so to protect them from our environment weather conditions during the other 6 months if you're able. But sometimes I know it is hard. In this case, if you will be having those permanently in your structure, please, at least 1 or 2 a year, especially before the hurricane season start, just check it how the status of those wires. Other important thing it is, when we are constructing using wood, it is to use the right wood anchors, right? So it is what you see there, the steel pieces there. There are plenty of types in the market. And if you are able, sometimes it is kind of expensive, but what I like to think when I gonna build something is to think in the future what is more expensive, to use the right materials now, or then lose all the structure and you need to remake that investment. So that's the reason why, in my opinion, no matter if that will take me a little longer, a little more of money, I will be building the structure in the right way to have it to be resistant to those phenomena, right? Or those events. So use those kind of anchors for wood is really I really recommend as well to use it. If you can fix them using bolts, it's a way effective. Another example for safe structure are, to know how those events behaves on your farm, and then design your structure in that with that scenario in mind. It's what I call smart structure, or smart farming, to name it in some way. And in this picture, we can see here this structure that this man there, he is one of our grantees in Grand Bahama. His name is Henry Duncombe from Duncombe Farm. As well, with him in the picture is our program associate there, Mrs. Kendanick Ferguson. And what he done, he used the debris of the poles to make a rice structure to put inside of this his goats and his sheep. Or in the event of a flood, they will be safe from the water, right? And they could not get drowned. So this is one of a safe structure too. Other thing when we are talking about the safe structure are defenses. And you say, oh, why defenses? They barely could be impacted by wind or something like this. Yes, but most of the losses of defenses systems in the farms during a hurricane is because of they are impacted by any other projectiles, or they are nearby heavy trees. And I'm not saying, hey, go there and cut all the trees, but if your fences in your farm are nearby trees, just keep this tree in a shape that could not turn in a menace for your fences. Because sometimes we need just to well, we were talking within a few slides, but just because you don't want your fences damaged in this kind of event, because your animals can run away without those fences, and fences are really, the materials are really expensive, right? So that's the reason why the fences, I highly recommend to look to have it in this shape. If you see this fence, you don't have any structure or tree or something that could be a potential, could cause a potential damage to this, to the fence, right? Other important mention where we are talking about to save the animals during those events are the animal evacuation. So one of those options we have, we can move them to a safe structure. We know when we are talking about a big number of animals, sometimes we don't have room for all of them. Other thing that we can make, it's if your area it's prone to floods, move them to a higher area. Not if you don't have a higher area in your property, you can look in your plan, in your contingency plan, you can identify an area that you can take your animals there. And I mentioned that I remember when I was doing some interviews for our evaluation process to our grant program, one farmer in the Bahamas was telling me that he is building a trailer to put all his animal inside and move them to a higher grounds. So if you don't have a higher ground on your property, just go and identify a place where you can move them. It is this if you're able to, right? Other thing is in the case of you are working with bees, as our friend in Grand Bahama, Dr. Timothy do, or our friend the honeyman in St. Croix in USBI do too. You can move those beehive, the bee boxes. You can fix the lids and other and all the parts of the beehive and move it to more higher grounds for floating or to a safer space. This movement, it's known as beehive transhumance, and it's highly recommended to make it at night as well. When we are working with bees, that you need to move from one part to the other, we make it at the night because in the night, all of them are in the beehive, right? And it's easier for us. So that is highly recommended to prevent the loss of our beehives, because we know the importance of the bees. And They are one of the most impacted animals during those events. Another concept that we can develop, and I just learned that concept. I never hear about it until I was researching and looking for more information for this webinar, are the animal evacuation centers. And the animal evacuation centers are structures that in other parts of the Caribbean, as Cuba, in some communities, they have this concrete structure or safe structure where the farmers can bring some of their livestock to keep them safe during those seasons, during those events. So I think it's a nice concept, and I just mentioned to you just to give the idea and see if you if some of you want to develop this in your place, right? Probably government have some public buildings that they are not in use and could turn in those centers. But if that's the case, so we just need to make sure our animals are in good health and they have all the vaccines and all the disease prevention, because they will be in a restricted area. And sometimes if we have animals that are not in good health, they can become a focus of infections to the healthy ones, right? But it is a nice concept. We will be sharing some information about it. And as I mentioned before, sometimes the option is to leave them in the open field. And for this, I don't want to promote the animal abuse, not never in life, right? So, but sometimes that is the wise option because we don't have another safer place to move them. So if it's your if that is your situation, you please verify that the area that you will leave those animals are not prone to floods. This is really important. We don't want to those animals to get drowned, and especially this practice has really come in when we are talking working with cattle. You know, bulls, cattle in general are heavy and sturdy animals, and they can manage well the heavy winds. That's a reason why I was mentioned that our fence system need to be a secure system, and we want to minimize the risk of that fence system to get damaged, because if we're gonna leave those animals in the field, we need to secure that they stay in a secure field, right? As well, I highly recommend you to make sure though in that field when you are planning to leave your livestock are an open field with no trees near or other objects that could turn in projectiles or can cause any damage to the livestock, right? So it is one option. I mentioned that one of my friends that he used oxen for plow and to make other labors in the field. He left his oxen in the open field during the Hurricane Maria, and the animals were safe. And nowadays they are working and really good and in good condition, right? Other options, as I mentioned, are the safe structure. I just want to show all of you this structure. This is one from this structure is now under construction and is from one of our grantees in Puerto Rico who works with cattle for replacement cattle for milk industry in Puerto Rico. So he used our fund and he matched with other funds to build this structure, just to place inside this structure the animals, as well with food and other supplies in the case that we're facing those kind of events. But if you see, it's a storage structure with the columns and the steel pieces in the right place. So using bolts to tie the columns to the concrete and all of this. So you can find on internet some designs and some and some tips on how those structures could be built as well. If you are interested and you have the money, because that's will higher the cost of the structure, I advise you to consult this with an structural engineer. So they are civil engineers, but they are specialized in structures, so they can give you a good advice how to design this in the right way. And I just want to show why I recommend sometimes to leave especially the cattle in the open field, because they could deal really well with the winds. Now, right here, you can see how aerodynamic they are, right? So there are some stories that researchers done about the aerodynamics in cattle, and it shows that the cattle are more aerodynamics than some of the cars we use. So that's the reason why they can deal good with the wind in combination with the weight of those animals, right? So when you know the field you will plan to leave there are not prone to floods and it's a clear field from objects, they will deal well with those kind of events, right? Other important thing is to have a safe food and water supply for them, because after, as happened with us, after those events, the scarcity of food and water could happen, or it's coming to happen, right? And I show this. Those pictures belongs to one of our grantees in Vieques, Puerto Rico, one of our municipality islands. This project is named Community Without Colors. And this guy used our grant to get this container, and this container is used to storage a good amount of animal food or feed, especially grains, for his operation, because he is producing poultry. Now he have 2 of those containers there, just to storage a good amount of food. So other thing I recommend it is to anchor those the containers to the ground. You can make it using steel wires and make some underground columns of concrete. You can use some pieces of steel to bolt them to the concrete, to the base in the concrete. One good example is what Nick and Daphne from Agronomist done with their containers on farm in Abaco in the Bahamas. But all the time I highly recommend to anchor those to the ground, because winds could turn those kind of containers. You can use a wide variety of structure to storage food, but one factor that we need to keep in mind is the structure, the humidity in the structure, it's low, because high humidity can damage the stock of food, and we don't want this, right? Talking in terms of water, we can make some structure on farm or in farm to storage water. One of those are those ponds, as the one that we have at the left. This picture belongs to one of our grantees in Puerto Rico too, and this pond looks kind of big and you know, it's kind of complex, the design of that, but you can make some more smaller ones and more and ones with another kind of more simple design in farm to storage water. They are really nice structure because or water storage. No matter what you use for storage, it's really I highly recommend to have in farm, because not just because those the heat of those events, but one of the things that are happening too with the climate patterns in our region, in the Caribbean, with the climate change, it is that our dry seasons will be extended. So it is really important to start to think in terms of our water supply on farm. You can make it using those ponds, or you can get plastic water tanks, or also you can build the ones in concrete. No matter which one you decide to use, if you are able to get some of them, just go for it. If you're using plastic water tanks, remember to attach the lid to the tank, because a gallon of water weighs around 8.4 pounds. In kilograms are around 4 kilograms. So they are heavy, because if you want a water tank from about 500 gallons or 1,000 gallons, that's why it's significant to not get to not get damaged by because of the wind. But if the lid is not attached right to the tank, the lid could fly away and we start to lose water. And then when their tanks are empty, wind could fly them too and damage them. So make sure that the lid is right in the right position, attached well to the tank. Other thing it is, if you have a water well, they are now in the market. You can find some pumps, water pumps that are powered by the sun, by solar power pumps, right? They work well. Nowadays, the prices are accessible, and they are really, really useful, and they work for several years, right? So I just mentioned it because after those events, we know one of the first things that go away is the electric power, right? So if you can access those kind of equipment, that will be good, and that ensure you, after the event happens, you will be able to pump water outside of the well. As well, we have plenty of sun in our neighborhood, right, in the Caribbean. Other recommendations is to develop and to design your project, thinking that you are going to go through this situation, right? Just thinking in advantage. As I mentioned, we are now in a completely different scenario of climate scenario that we were 15 or 20 years ago. So things are not the same. We need to have our life in that context. Yeah, it's to resume. If you have a structure with plastic roof as the greenhouses, remove that coverage from the greenhouse. So if you have the film, the polyethylene film in the roof of that structure, please remove it from the structure, because when the wind starts to make pressure, it will crush the completely, it will compact the complete structure. That's what's happening in Puerto Rico to the ones that does not remove the plastic roof of the greenhouses. If you remove this plastic film, your structure will be 99% safe. Other thing that you need to have in mind is to look around the structure. If you have trees or other structure that could be potential menace to the greenhouse or the structure you have there. So just keep it in mind. Most of those structures, the system that is used to attach this plastic film to the structure is removable, and you can reuse that plastic film. I know it's kind of hard work to make it, but it will help you to secure your investment. In the case of your structure or part of your operation are prone to floods, you can use the sandbag barriers to make the sandbag walls to evade the water get into a structure or to certain parts of your of your operation, it is not the most easy one, but it's really useful. And you know, because it's labor, it consumes a lot of labor. Just think wisely where it will be more effective to use this kind of barrier, right? Most important of everything I can say, it is to create a support network. Talking in terms in Puerto Rico after Maria, the community, that network of the community, the friends, the colleagues, the farmers, the fishers that were doing the same, they work together to get back on track. And that is what helped us significantly to surpass that situation, right? For example, in Puerto Rico, especially the ecological farmers done brigades of labor brigades to farms. So they get together and they move from one farm to the other farm of the groups to 1 or 2 days of heavy work to get in track as soon as possible, because 10, 12, 20 hands work better than just a pair of them, right? So it is really important to have that support network among the producers. In terms, especially to our friends in Bahamas, if you are able to get a filtration system to desalinate water, it would be good, because mainly in Great Bahama, because of the floods, all the water, groundwater storage gets salted, right? So if you are able to, at some point, to get a filtration system, that will help you to be more resilient to these kind of events. I know because our work there, so we saw that it's really common for the farmers to get our reverse osmosis filtration system, and the cost of that system could range between $1,000 to a little bit more. It is not cheap, but it is effective, and if you can save some money to get one of them, it is not bad to have it, right? There are other filtration systems as well. If possible, get an insurance. In Puerto Rico, farmers are able to get insurance. I know in BIs, there are some options too. I know in Bahamas, it's not common or it's not happening yet, but the Monday we had a panel of agriculture ministries from Bahamas, Puerto Rico, and USBI, and Mr. Pintard was mentioned that he is working to develop this kind of system at the Bahamas. So for our friends there, just keep in touch with the agriculture department and see how this initiative is going, and if any of you have any idea or collaborate to the Department of Agriculture, just keep in touch with them, because insurance are really useful in terms of this, right? As well, if you are have any instructor or something like this, equipment or something or anything that you think could be there out there on insurance, so just get some information and look for it. And if it's a good deal for you, don't think twice, just get it, right? Because it is an inversion. So, and I just want to close saying that it's always remembered that it's better to prevent than regret. I don't know, it sounds good on English. I just translate one from Spanish, that we tend to say this in Puerto Rico, pointing that all that's mentioned that we has been working, discussing today are preventive measures that will help you to handle this situation better. We don't want to pass for the same experience as we pass down here in Puerto Rico in Maria, or USBI in the USBI with Irma and then Maria, or as our friends in Bahamas passed around 2 years ago with Dorian, right? We don't want to. So those events are really sad. They are not good, but we can learn from them. We can they teach us. And now I think, and I know all of people here in Puerto Rico, in Bahamas, in USBI, along of all the Caribbean, other parts that has passing through those experiences, now we are stronger. But we need to be stronger and smarter. And having this in mind, we need to keep going, moving forward, but having this in mind and putting in practice the lesson that those events teach us, right? And it's why I say this. So we must go from being resistant to be resilient, because resistant is what we are being, right? Because it is really hard, and all my respect to all of you guys for keep pushing after those events are really hard, right? But we has been resistant for long. So now it's time to move to being resilience, and resilience means how normal we can keep going after those events, right? So it's the reason I invite all of you to question all what I mentioned here, to keep sharing information, to keep in touch with us, to keep in touch within your network in your place, and keep going forward, and keep going, making all that we have on hand to face those extreme events in the right way, right?